So, the final trailer before Stranger Things 5 lands just dropped, and watching it at a quarter speed unlocks a pile of stuff that's easy to miss at normal speed. We're talking about things like what Vecna actually wants from Will, how Eleven's powers have changed, and which moments look like they're hiding a major death. It all starts with Vecna speaking and a Demogorgon bowing. That's not only a cool monster moment, it's confirmation that every creature down there takes orders from the ultimate monster. Vecna isn't just a maniac on the loose, he's running an army, and it explains the scale of what we see later when gates rip open and soldiers get swarmed. This tells you that everything's going bigger and harder. Next up is the library. You'll see the Hawkins library again and again in the footage. Slow the trailer down, and you can pick out the quarantine wall forming a tight square around that zone with a secondary perimeter outside it. Bunks and a helipad sit nearby, which tells you that this is an active operations hub for war instead of just a fenced-off ruin. It's the centerpiece of a huge interdimensional battle. That's vital, because this revelation points to the library as the live doorway between worlds, rather than just a past event site. Previous rifts overlap there, and the government has decided this is the only place you can try to manage, monitor, or maybe attack what's coming through. But from the chaos we see, it looks like they were wrong to think they could contain the carnage. Let's take a second to focus on the song choice. Queen's Who Wants to Live Forever is playing on purpose, and in context it's about the cast list more than anything epic. The main takeaway is the insane stakes. If you're a day one viewer, this is your warning that someone you've known since season 1 is probably not making it to New Year's. The lyric timing lines up with reaction shots, and that matters hugely. Marketing wants you primed for loss. Something heartbreaking and life-altering is happening, whether we like it or not. We need to talk about Dustin too. There's a quick sequence where he bikes alone in his Hellfire shirt. When things are slowed down, you can get a better look at the bruising and the torn collar in later shots, as well as some blood. The simple way to look at this is just a fight for fighting's sake. The stronger read is he's been targeted for defending Eddie, since the town still believes he was a cruel killer. The payoff for viewers in seeing this pain is twofold. 1. Dustin starts this season angry and active instead of just a funny side character. 2, and far more importantly to the season's plot, his loyalty to Eddie is going to push him into danger without the group around him. When we see him sobbing into Steve's shoulder later, that's emotional setup for a hard turn in the story. If you've been nervous about Steve for years, hold that thought, but the smarter bet for who's in immediate danger early is someone tied to Nancy or Joyce. Take a look at the SQK radio station. There are 2 key details here. First, Mike and Eleven use the roof as a safe meet point, which tells you the kids build their plan outside the official channels, keeping themselves hidden. Second, the tower shows up later with weird smoke and damage around it, which lines up with our knowledge that the Upside Down piggybacks on signal and power. That's a practical reason to destroy the tower, while also treating it as tragic symbolism, with the possibility that Mike and Eleven will be forever separated. There's a tunnel we get a look at which is far different to the others. It's too clean to be a random tear looking more like something hand-carved, and it leads to marked places on the kids' paper map. That's a human-made route under lockdown, most likely linking the radio station, and a church entrance you can spot later in the plan. A practical takeaway here is that the party has created a new way to move around without hitting checkpoints, which they'll need once the inner zone turns hot. Eleven's power set looks different in this trailer, as we can see from shots like the dramatic rooftop leap. That's a controlled launch with airtime that's longer than anything we've seen from her before, rather than just a simple powered hop. Then we have the strange energy burst that starts red and flips to blue over the upside-down version of Hawkins' lab. If those shots connect, we're looking at a defense or purge effect instead of just a shove or simple strike. If Eleven can shockwave and change the energy state of a space, she can easily seal or cauterize a gate completely instead of holding it for a second like before. That's the only way a final season can truly shut the doors. The alternative would be endless whack-a-moles, which would grow boring and repetitive. Hopper is with her inside an upside-down facility that has a military radome in the background. That's a plain indicator that the government didn't just barricade Hawkins, they built tech inside the other side. This directly answers a question from last season about whether anyone would try to study that world instead of just shooting at it and burning it down. If there's a base in there, someone believes it's stable enough to build in, which is either very bold or completely reckless. Chances are pretty high that it's reckless, because that's how you end up with Demogorgons slipping through while people argue over clearances. If we pause on Joyce in the bunker scene where Mike looks over, you can actually just make out Will nearby, and he doesn't look good. Tie that to the later line from Vecna saying, "William, you're going to help me one last time," and the sinister meaning is clear as day. Vecna needs Will as a tool rather than a trophy. The Mind Flayer link never went away, and whatever was planted in Season 2 is still useful. Maybe Will is actually the key to that part of Vecna's army, and without him, he's unable to complete his goal to full satisfaction. On the other hand, it could also be using Will as bait or a bargaining chip to trap 11 and the others, using him as insurance. Now we have the whole thing with Nancy. We see her crying, scrubbing blood off her hands in a hospital sink, and it all looks super dark. That shot is quick, but there's enough to build a rough timeline of events. The hospital is inside the inner grid on Mike's map, and it becomes a hot zone later with demo dogs in the elevator shaft. Nancy fires an assault rifle in a different shot, likely inside or near the same complex. The hard question we have here is whose blood was on her hands. The most obvious and low-stakes guesses are Jonathan or Karen. There's a strong case for Karen because we also see her and Holly soaking wet, crawling on the kitchen floor after hiding in a bathtub as something cruelly tears through their house. If Karen gets injured in that breach and Nancy reaches her at the hospital, the sync moment fits the bill for a tragic but background death. Either way, Nancy's armed and engaged. She's doing more than sideline research this time. Lucas and Max get a series of blink-and-you-miss-it hints that line up into a story. There's Lucas in a tunnel, backlit red, facing a full Demogorgon, possibly jumped by surprise. Later, he's hauling Max's body through a hospital corridor while a demo dog charges. Freeze this moment, and you'll spot a boombox held firmly in his grasp, even when he's 1 second away from being demo dinner. He's trying to use music again to anchor her, which firstly suggests she's still under, and secondly means that he's placing her grip on reality above his own life. We also see Steve drive a van with a long radio antenna bolted on top. Dustin wears a ghillie hood and looks stunned as he looks upward. This lines up with a live comms plan in the city grid. The antenna lets the group feed location data to whoever's in the tunnel network, while Robin and Murray deal with sudden gates opening near the station. Pay attention to the Bradleys' big buy truck parked near them. That's a moving target later when a gate opens in the street and something crawls out. The use case is simple. A food truck gives both speed and access. If you need to pull someone out or crash through a perimeter, you take the truck to hit hard. We see soldiers inside the inner fence get hit from multiple angles. Gates open in the asphalt, creatures spill out, and shots ring across the courtyard. The point isn't chaos alone. The military's plan was built around a static breach, and now they're facing a dynamic system which is evolving to combat them in real time. Vecna's learned from last time. He's not waiting for everyone to gather at one hole, he's popping new ones under their feet. Alright, we can't talk about the trailer without talking about the elephant in the room, Will. Watch the wording when Vecna says William. That's how you talk to someone you're looking down on and are familiar with. It's clear that Vecna chose Will on day 1, not by accident, but due to some sinister plan, and he kept a thread through him after Season 2. The practical meaning from this is that Will's powers, if they're there, don't come from a lab. They come from contact, that there are rumors of energy firing from Will's hands in a crisis. Even if you ignore all of that, the way he's pulled in, the way Joyce looks at him like she's losing him, and Mike stepping toward Joyce like he's helpless, those are deliberate and careful framing choices that tell you, Will isn't just another character to kill. He's a key to something huge. If Will can either open or close something on command when Vecna triggers him, the final act becomes a contest over Will's body and mind, instead of just a brawl in a room or a deathmatch. Back to 11's crazy power blast. You can look at the outer edge of the wave as it chases toward the wall of darkness that looks like an organic barrier instead of a skyline. When the wave flips from red to blue, the effect resembles cooling and sealing instead of burning and tearing. If you've wondered how you end a story like this without hand-waving, this is the answer. You don't kill every monster in existence. You change the rules in the space they use to travel. You close the plumbing that links the realities together. There is an alternative, although it's not as dramatic, that the pulse of power is just a big nudge to throw creatures back, the same way Henry Creel was years prior, but in spirit rather than body. Whatever the case is, there's a clear shift in power, and it looks like a symbol that our gang has finally achieved victory in some way. There's a pattern of mirrored gestures you can catch if you step through slowly. 11 holds Mike's face in one shot. Vecna holds Will's face in another. That's a direct comparison between two claims on two people, rather than artsy framing. Protect versus possess, love versus hate. If you've ever felt like Will's story has been waiting to finish, this is the payoff. He's the person both sides try to claim at once, but where he ends up is entirely unknown. Will he turn evil and help Vecna? Will he remain good and turn Vecna's powers against him? So much remains unknown. Somebody else we need to take a close look at is Jonathan. He's present in group shots, then vanishes for long stretches. Then we get Nancy and Jonathan pressing foreheads with relief, then Nancy scrubbing blood at the sink. There's enough here to form a disturbing sense of timing. Jonathan's arc runs strong through Volume 1, then he's in direct danger for the episodes that drop around Christmas. The reason that matters is simple. If you're reading the trailer like some kind of map, that sync moment is placed mid-season instead of in the final hours. It's a chance for us to either grieve or worry before Nancy's resolve is steeled, and we see her kick major ass later on as a result of whatever loss she faces. Let's talk final boss design. Vecna's body looks rebuilt and thicker, with gaps you can see through. That matches a simple idea. He lost most of what was human when he fell and burned, and he's now more integrated with the Upside Down itself. A practical result of this is that old methods that used fire and bullets will work less effectively, if they even work at all now. You'll need a change in the environment, like that blue wave, instead of a bigger flamethrower to slow down Vecna now. He's on a whole new level of power. The hospital elevator shot with Lucas and Max is useful for two more reasons. First, it shows the demo dogs are faster and more aggressive than last time. Second, it puts Max's rescue in the same building as Nancy's sync moment, and the group hug with Vicky in the background. That puts multiple story threads in one location, which is exactly what you'd do if you were about to blow the place open and have a huge mid-season cliffhanger between episode batches. The elevator doors shutting just in time is the last quiet beat before the building turns into a free-for-all. Keep an eye on Mike when Joyce is near Will. His face isn't brave leader mode. That's shock. That tells you Mike's plan has already backfired once by the time we get to that scene. He's reacting instead of setting pieces on a board. Does that make him useless? No, it makes him human, and it sets up a second plan that uses the same D&D logic with higher stakes. Expect his best move to come late instead of early, likely after he's already lost someone core to his plan. So what's the bottom line you can walk away with? The library is the live center of all the action. The radio station is the group's brain. The tunnels are the arteries, to the extent that a hand-carved one might be the center of our group's plans. The hospital is the triage point that turns into a war zone. The government tried to build a lab inside the other side and it backfired. 11's power has a new ceiling, and it probably flips gates from open to sealed. Vecna needs Will as a key instead of just as a trophy. And that blue wave is the only thing that looks like an endgame solution that sticks. So that's a full analysis of the trailer. There are a ton of small details, but as always, the Duffers were careful to cut things in a way that leaves us with more questions than answers. Are you hyped for the final season? Who do you think is likely to die? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more Stranger Things content and theories, click the video on screen now.